The wind howled like a wounded animal across the vast Wyoming plains, carrying with it the bitter chill of an early winter that had descended too soon. Eliza Thorne clutched the thin shawl around her shoulders, her bare feet sinking into the frozen mud as she stumbled away from the ramshackle house that had been her prison for the past 3 years. The door she'd slipped through creaked ominously in the distance, but she didn't dare look back. Her husband's snores, heavy and ragged from the whiskey he'd drowned himself in that evening, still echoed in her ears. If he woke now, if he discovered her gone, there would be no mercy. Not like the last time, when his fists had left her bruised and broken, whispering apologies into the night as if she were the one at fault. Eliza's breath came in short, painful gasps, each one tasting of fear and freedom intertwined. The ground was unforgiving, sharp rocks and thorny weeds slicing into her soles, but the pain was a small price compared to the hell she'd endured. Married at 18 to Harlan Thorne, a man twice her age with a temper as unpredictable as a summer storm, she'd learned quickly that love was a lie peddled in fairy tales. Harlan had promised her the world, a homestead, children, stability, but delivered only isolation and violence. The nearest town was 20 miles away, and the ranch hands who worked the land kept their distance, knowing better than to interfere in another man's marriage. As she ran, the moon peeked through the clouds, casting a silvery glow on the endless expanse of grassland. Her dress, once a vibrant blue, now faded to gray, tore on a low branch, but she pressed on. Memories flooded her mind. The day Harlan had dragged her by the hair across the kitchen floor for burning supper, the nights he'd come home reeking of saloon perfume, accusing her of infidelity while his own sin stained the sheets. She dreamed of escape 100 times, mapping out routes in her head during the long, lonely hours of chores. But tonight, something had snapped. He'd raised his hand one too many times, and in the haze of his drunken stupor, she'd seen her chance. The cold seeped into her bones, numbing her extremities, but adrenaline kept her moving. She veered toward the creek that bordered their property, its waters frozen solid under a thin layer of ice. Crossing it would mean entering wilder territory, land zoned by the sprawling double-bar ranch, where cowboys roamed and cattle grazed. Harlan had warned her never to go there. He said the men were rough, lawless types who'd take advantage of a woman alone. But what choice did she have? Staying meant death, slow and suffocating. Her foot caught on a root, and she fell hard. The impact during her ribs where old bruises still lingered. Tears stung her eyes, hot against the frigid air. "Keep going," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the wind. She pushed up, ignoring the blood trickling from her palms, and continued onward. The plain seemed to stretch forever, a sea of darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. Hours passed, or was it minutes? Time blurred into her exhaustion. Her legs burned, her lungs ached, and doubt crept in. What if she froze out here? What if Harlan found her tracks at dawn? Just as despair threatened to overwhelm her, she heard it, the distant thunder of hooves. Panic surged through her. Was it Harlan? Had he woken and saddled up? She dropped to the ground, curling into a ball behind a cluster of sagebrush, her heart pounding like a war drum. The sound grew closer, rhythmic and steady, until a shadow loomed over her hiding spot. A horse snorted, its breath warm and misty in the night air. "Whoa there, easy boy," a deep voice murmured. It wasn't Harlan's, his was gravelly from years of shouting and smoking. This voice was smoother, laced with a drawl that spoke of open skies and long rides. Eliza peeked through the branches, her body tense. The rider dismounted with a fluid motion, his boots crunching on the frosted grass. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a weathered Stetson and a duster coat that flapped in the wind. A cowboy, through and through. He scanned the area, his eyes sharp even in the dim light. "Anyone out here?" he called, his tone cautious but not threatening. Eliza held her breath, willing herself invisible. But then a twig snapped under her weight, and his head whipped toward her. "Show yourself, I ain't here to hurt ya." Trembling, she rose slowly, her bare feet exposed and vulnerable. The cowboy's eyes widened as he took her into the disheveled hair, the torn dress, the bruises peeking from her sleeves. He raised his hands, palms out, like approaching a skittish foal. "Miss, you look like you've been through hell." "What happened?" Eliza's throat tightened. Words failed her at first, choked by fear and fatigue. I ran," she managed, her voice a whisper. "From my husband." The cowboy nodded slowly, no judgment in his gaze. "Name's Caleb Reed. I work the double bar." "You need help?" She hesitated, every instinct screaming to run, but her body betrayed her, swaying with exhaustion. Caleb stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "Here," he said, shrugging off his coat and draping it over her shoulders. The warmth enveloped her like a lifeline, smelling of leather, horse sweat, and something earthy, like pine. "Can't have you freezing out here. My cabin's not far. You can rest there, get some food in ya." Eliza clutched the coat, torn between gratitude and suspicion. Men like Harlan had taught her to distrust kindness. It always came with strings. But Caleb's eyes held a gentleness she hadn't seen in years, and the colt was winning. "Just for tonight," she said softly. He helped her onto his horse, a sturdy bay named Rusty, and mounted behind her, his arms bracketing her without touching. The ride was silent save for the horse's steady gait and the occasional hoot of an owl. Eliza leaned back slightly, the heat from his body seeping through, chasing away the chill. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt a glimmer of safety. The cabin emerged from the darkness like a beacon, a small log structure nestled against a copse of aspens, smoke curling from its chimney. Caleb tied Rusty to a post and opened the door, ushering her inside. The interior was sparse but cozy, a stone fireplace crackling with flames, a wooden table with 2 chairs, a bed piled with quilts in the corner. No frills, but it was clean and warm. "Sit by the fire," he instructed, guiding her to a rocking chair. He busied himself at the stove, heating water for tea and slicing bread from a loaf. Eliza watched him warily, her feet throbbing now that the numbness had faded. Blood smeared the floor where she stepped, and she winced. Caleb noticed. "Your feet," he said, kneeling with a basin of warm water and a cloth. "May I?" She nodded, too tired to protest. His touch was gentle as he cleaned the cuts, applying soap from a tin on the mantel. "These'll heal, but you got to stay off them for a bit," he murmured. "What's your name?" "Eliza," she replied, her voice steadier now. "Eliza Thorne." "Thorne, as in Harlan Thorne, that mean old Gus down by the creek?" She flinched at the name. "My husband." Caleb's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone even. "Heard stories about him. None good." "You did right getting out over tea and bread slathered with butter." Eliza found herself opening up. The words tumbled out of the isolation, the beatings, the way Harlan had chipped away at her spirit until she barely recognized herself. Caleb listened without interruption, his expression a mix of anger and empathy. When she finished, tears streaming down her face, he handed her a handkerchief. "You're safe here," he said firmly. "Harlan won't find you on Double Bar land." The foreman, Mr. Whitaker, don't take kindly to trespassers. Eliza wiped her eyes, studying him. Caleb was in his late 20s, she guessed, with sun-kissed skin and calloused hands that spoke of hard work. A scar ran along his jaw, faint but telling, and his eyes, a hazel flecked with gold, held the depth that intrigued her. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "You don't know me." He shrugged, poking at the fire. "Seen enough suffering in this world. Lost my sister to a man like Harlan years back. Couldn't save her, but maybe I can help you." The admission hung in the air, heavy with unspoken pain. Eliza's heart softened a fraction. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just rest now." "You can take the bed-style bunk on the floor," she protested, but he insisted, spreading a blanket by the hearth. As she slipped under the quilts, the weight of the day crashed over her. Sleep came swiftly, dreamless for the first time in months. Dawn broke with the crow of a distant rooster, painting the cabin in soft golden light. Eliza woke to the smell of coffee and bacon sizzling on the stove. Caleb was already up, tending to chores outside. She sat up, her feet bandaged and less painful, and surveyed the room. A few personal touches caught her eye: a worn Bible on the shelf, a framed photograph of a young woman who must have been his sister, and a guitar leaning against the wall. Caleb returned with an armful of firewood, stomping snow from his boots. "Mornin'. How are you feelin'?" "Better," she admitted. "Thank you." He poured her coffee, black and strong. "Gotta head out to mend fences today." "You're welcome to stay, but if you wanna leave, I can point you toward town." Eliza sipped the brew, considering. Town meant uncertainty of finding work, dodging Harlan's reach. Here, at least for now, was shelter. I'd like to stay, If it's no trouble, I can help around here, cook, clean. A small smile tugged at his lips. No trouble at all. Could use the company. Thus began an uneasy truce. Eliza spent the day tidying the cabin, mending a tear in Caleb's shirt, and preparing a stew from the pantry staples. Her hands, accustomed to labor, found solace in the tasks. When Caleb returned as dusk, dusty and weary, he praised her efforts, and they shared a meal by the fire. Conversation flowed tentatively about the ranch, the cattle drives, the beauty of the stars unmarred by city lights. As days blurred into a week, Eliza's bruises faded, and her feet healed enough to wear an old pair of Caleb's boots, stuffed with rags for fit. She ventured outside, helping with the horses, learning to groom Rusty under Caleb's patient guidance. He taught her the basics of riding, his hand steady on hers as she gripped the reins. "Easy now," he'd say, his breath warm against her ear. "Let him feel your confidence." There was something magnetic about Cowboy, a quiet strength that didn't demand submission. He spoke of his past in snippets. Orphaned young, raised by an uncle on the ranch, wandering the west before settling at Double Bar. He'd seen gold rushes, Indian skirmishes, the raw edge of frontier life. "Makes a man appreciate the simple things," he said one evening, strumming his guitar softly. Eliza shared her own high story growing up in a bustling Kansas town, dreaming of adventure, only to be married off to Harlan by her ailing father. "I thought it was love," she confessed, "but it was just chains." Caleb's eyes darkened. "Love ain't supposed to hurt like that." Their proximity bred familiarity, and with it, a spark. A brush of hands while passing plates, a shared laugh over a stubborn muley. These moments built like kindling. Eliza caught herself watching him, admiring the way his muscles flexed under his shirt as he chopped wood, or the crinkle at his eyes when he smiled. One afternoon, as snow flurried outside, they sat by the fire, Caleb whittling a piece of wood into a small horse figurine. "For you," he said, handing it over. "Something to remember the good days by." She turned it in her hands, touched. "It's beautiful." "Thank you." Their fingers lingered, and time seemed to slow. Caleb's gaze met hers, intense and searching. "Eliza, I didn't expect this. Finding you out there, it changed things." Her heart raced. "Changed how?" He set the knife aside, leaning closer. "I think I'm falling for you, but I won't push. You've been through enough." The words hung between them, electric. Eliza's breath caught. Fear warred with the zuri she'd sworn off men, yet Caleb was different. Gentle, respectful. She reached out, tracing the scar on his jaw. "What happened here?" "Bar fight in Cheyenne. Defend in a lady's honor." He chuckled softly. She smiled, then leaned in, her lips meeting his in a tentative kiss. It was soft at first, exploratory, but deepened as years of pent-up longing surfaced. Caleb's arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, but he broke away first, breathless. "We take this slow," he whispered. "Whatever you want." Eliza nodded, her cheeks flushed. For the first time, she felt desired, not possessed. But peace was fragile. Word from the ranch hands trickled. Harlan was searching for her, raging through town, offering rewards. Caleb grew vigilant, riding patrols around the cabin. "He won't get near you," he promised. One stormy night, as thunder rattled the windows, a knock echoed at the door. Caleb grabbed his rifle, motioning Eliza to hide. She crouched behind the bed, heart pounding. "Who's there?" Caleb called. "It's Whitaker," the foreman's voice boomed. "Open up, Reed." Caleb lowered the gun and opened the door. Mr. Whitaker, a burly man with a mustache like a broom, stepped in, shaking rain from his hat. His eyes landed on Eliza, who emerged cautiously. "So this is the missus everyone's talking about." "She's staying with me," Caleb said firmly. "Harlan Thorne's no good." Whitaker nodded. "I know his type, but he's making threats. Says she'll come crawling back or else." Eliza straightened. "I won't." "Ever." The foreman studied her, then grunted approval. "Fine. You can work here, cook for the bunkhouse, earn your keep. But keep low. Thorne's got friends." "Grateful," Eliza agreed. The arrangement solidified her place, and with it, her bond with Caleb grew. They stole moments amid the chaos, walks under starlit skies, where he'd point out constellations, quiet evenings where she'd read aloud from his Bible, her voice soothing his restless soul. Yet Harlan's shadow loomed. Scouts reported him scouting the borders, armed and angry. Caleb taught Eliza to shoot, his hand steadying the revolver as she aimed at tin cans. "Just in case," he said. As winter deepened, so did their love. One night, after a particularly grueling day herding cattle through snowed drifts, Caleb returned frozen and exhausted. Eliza drew a hot bath in the tin tub, helping him undress with tender care. The steam rose around them, and inhibitions melted away. Their kisses turned passionate, bodies entwining in a dance of healing and desire. It was her choice, fully, and in his arms, she found redemption. But fate twisted. The next morning, a rider arrived with news. Harlan was coming, backed by a posse, claiming theft of his property. Whitaker rallied the hands, but tension crackled like lightning. Caleb pulled Eliza aside. "If it comes to it, run for town. Don't look back." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving you." As the sun set, hoofbeats thundered in the distance. Harlan's voice carried on the wind, bellowing her name. Caleb kissed her fiercely. "Stay inside." The confrontation unfolded in the yard. The shouts, accusations, guns drawn. Eliza peered through the window, fear gripping her. A shot rang out, and chaos erupted. When the dust settled, Harlan lay wounded, his men scattered. Caleb stood victorious but bloodied, a graze on his arm. Whitaker hauled Harlan away, bound for the sheriff. Eliza rushed out, bandaging Caleb's wound. "It's over," he said, pulling her close. In the aftermath, as snow blanketed the plains anew, Eliza and Caleb faced the future together. She fled her cruel husband's house with bare feet, but found not just shelter, but love in the arms of a cowboy who saw her strength.